Welcome to What You Didn't Hear, the podcast that proves history isn't just dusty textbooks and dramatic reenactments by people who take mustaches way too seriously. Nope, every date on the calendar is basically a grab bag of weirdness, and we're here to reach in and pull out the stuff nobody bothered to mention. Sure, you've heard of the big significant moments, the famous speeches, the heroic discoveries, and wow, that changed everything events. Good for them. But we're here for the lesser-known gems, the tiny scandals, the bizarre inventions, the arguments that change nothing but are still hilarious, and the events so strange you'll wonder how humanity ever made it this far. Each episode we take today's date, shine a spotlight under the rug of history, and see what scurries out. You'll come away with stories guaranteed to make you sound smart, quirky, or at least like someone who reads the footnotes for fun. So grab a snack, settle in, and prepare to learn the things your history teacher definitely skipped, probably for a reason. This is What You Didn't Hear about December 17th.
Hey, check it out! Back it up, yeah. Drop it down, make it shake. Ow! History, 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 history.
A world-altering event that took place on December 17th was in Kill Devil Hills, North Carolina, when the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, make the first successful, sustained, and controlled-powered, heavier-than-air flight in 1903. While this event is huge and completely changed the way our world traveled from one place to another, we're going to rewind way back to the year 546 and work forward from there, covering the lesser-known events and facts that also took place on December 17th. The Ostrogoths conquer Rome in 546 by bribing the Byzantine garrison during the Gothic War. The Gothic siege of Rome began in 545 with King Totila leading the Ostrogoths and General Bessus in command of the garrison in Rome. General Bessus had a large store of grain to endure the siege, but would only sell the grain to the civilians at a largely inflated price. He would also not allow any civilians to leave the city during the siege. The ordinary Romans, who were not rich enough to buy grain from the military, were reduced to eating bran, nettles, dogs, and mice. Suicide rates rose, and eventually the general allowed those who wanted to leave the city. It was reported that many of them did not survive their escape because they either died of starvation or were killed by the Gothic enemy waiting outside of Rome. Pope Vigilus, who had fled to Syracuse, attempted to send aid and supplies, but the flotilla was intercepted near the mouth of the Tiber River and captured by King Totila. On December 17th, King Totila's men scaled the walls at night and opened the gate aided by the Assyrian troops from the garrison inside Rome, who had made a secret pact with the Goths. The following spring, General Belisarius would retake Rome after the Goths abandoned the ruined city and would successfully defend it against the Ostrogoths. Now we will jump forward several hundred years to Normandy. William Longsword, the second Duke of Normandy, is assassinated on December 17th. He ruled Normandy from 927 to 942 when he was assassinated. Jumping forward to 1531, Pope Clement VII published the papal bull authorizing the Portuguese Inquisition, giving authority to appoint inquisitors and combat heresy, particularly against Jewish communities within Portugal. However, King John III of Portugal did not accept these conditions of the acquisition, and in 1535 Pope Clement VII suspended the acquisition. A general pardon was issued to those guilty of Judaism, prisoners were released, and confiscated property was restored. The final decision to suspend the Inquisition was based on a report that recalled the true doctrine on the conviction of the infidels, persuasion and gentleness, following Christ's example. Additionally, the report provided information about the inquisitorial courts, saying the abuses of the inquisitors made them out to be ministers of Satan and not of Christ, acting like thieves and mercenaries. A little over 50 years later, in Japan, Go-Joshi, becomes the 107th emperor of Japan at 14 years old. Go-Josei was born December 31st, 1571, to Prince Masahito, who passed away before Go-Josei's grandfather, leaving Go-Josei to inherit the title of emperor. When assuming his imperial rule, Tadahito took the name of Go-Josei in reference to the 9th century emperor Josei. The Go at the beginning of his name translates to later. Go-Josei's reign spanned the years from 1586 through his abdication in 1611, corresponding to the transition between the Asuchi Momoyama period and the Edo period. Remaining in Japan, we'll move forward into the Edo period for the Shimabara rebellion. Matsukura, the daimyo of Shimabara in the Tokugawa shogunate, had raised taxes considerably to build a new Shimabara castle, as well as enacted violently aggressive policies against Christianity in the region. On December 17, 1611, an alliance of Ronin and peasants who were converted Catholics began a rebellion. As an aside, a Ronin is a masterless samurai warrior from feudal Japan who had lost their lord, often due to the lord's death, disgrace, or demotion. In other words, they were drifters and swords for hire. The Tokugawa shogunate sent a force of 125,000 to stomp out the rebellion, which had besieged Hara Castle. In April of 1638, the rebellion was ended. The leader of the Shimabara rebellion, a Christian samurai named Amakusa, and 37,000 other rebels and sympathizers were beheaded. Additionally, the Portuguese traders suspected of aiding the rebellion were evicted from Japan. However, following the rebellion, Matsukura was investigated and found guilty of misrule and would be beheaded in Edo. He was the only daimyo who was beheaded during the Edo period, and the Shimabara domain was given to Koriki Tadafusa. Now shift over to the Americas in 1790, when the Aztec Sunstone was rediscovered during the restoration of Mexico City Cathedral. The Aztec Sunstone is said to have been carved between 1502 and 1521. It weighs 54,210 pounds and is 12 feet in diameter and 39 inches thick. It remains on display at the National Anthropology Museum in Mexico City. Sometime between 1551 and 1572, the Archbishop of Mexico, Alonso de Montefar, ordered the sunstone be buried so that the memory of the ancient sacrifice that was made there would be lost. The centerpiece of the Aztec sunstone features Moctezuma, and it is said that all the figures surrounding him are representatives of the months and years. However, there are no clear or documented purposes of the sunstone other than a monument to Moctezuma's rule. In exploration history, 1845, German explorer Ludwig Leichhardt reaches Port Essington from his overland expedition across the Northern Territories of Australia on December 17th. Setting out from the Jimbor homestead in Queensland October 1st, 1844, the expedition made its way north. After their 3,000-mile journey and having believed to have been lost and dead, the expedition arrived in Port Essington on December 17th. In 1848, Leichhardt would attempt another expedition across the vast desert of Australia, and his expedition would never be heard from again. Multiple sites holding remains where Aboriginals had killed explorers have been found, but no evidence has been found as to if it's Leichhardt's men. His final expedition's resting place remains a mystery to this day. In France, in the year 1900, the French Académie des Sciences offered up a reward of 100,000 francs to the first person to successfully communicate with off-world life forms, or aliens. However, as Mars was believed to be inhabited, contact with Martians would clearly be too easy and would not grant you the reward. Remaining in 1900 on December 17th, in New York, the Ellis Island Immigration Center was completed, costing $1.5 million. Still in New York, December 17th, in 1924, the world's first diesel-electric locomotive begins service in the Bronx. The purpose of the diesel-electric locomotive was to switch freight cars when space was limited in the rail yard. and to avoid city ordinance prohibiting the use of steam engines within the city. The significance of this diesel-electric locomotive was it demonstrated how efficient diesel-electric engines could be and began the shift away from steam engines. In the same year in sports history, the Hamilton Tigers and Ottawa Senators played the first scoreless game in NHL history. In 1927, off the coast of Provincetown, Massachusetts, the USS S-4 submarine collided with the Coast Guard destroyer USS Paulding and sunk, killing all 40 submariners aboard the submarine. After the collision, the USS Paulding lowered its life rafts, but only found small traces of oil and air bubbles. During early rescue attempts, it was found that 6 submariners had sealed themselves off in a forward torpedo room and tapped out Morse code on the hull of the ship to communicate with the rescuers. As they used up the last of their oxygen, they tapped out the message, "Is there any hope?" Captain King from the rescue party responded to them, saying, "There is hope. Everything possible is being done." Ultimately, the rescue party was thwarted by weather and were unable to rescue any of the submariners. The USS S-4 was raised in March of the following year and dry docked in Boston Naval Yard for repairs. It was officially decommissioned on the 19th of March in 1928, and later that year would be recommissioned as a training vessel for divers in submarine rescue operations. It would continue to be used for its new mission until 1933, when it was decommissioned and scuttled near Pearl Harbor. In film history, James Bond, Goldfinger, premieres in London in 1964, starring Sean Connery. And in 1971, James Bond movie Diamonds Are Forever is released on the same day. And still in film history, in 1989, The Simpsons airs on December 17th for the first time. The Simpsons would go on to produce 37 seasons and has been renewed through season 40, making it the longest-running animated TV show. And for today, we'll leave it here. That way we can get to this month's installment of Blind Date Through Time, the only dating show where we travel back through history to find a timeless romance. Name, Al. Age, let's just say time is relative. Occupation, tinkerer, thinker, occasional universe questioner. About me, I spend most of my time daydreaming, usually about light beams, the fabric of reality, or how to make a violin sing after midnight. I've been told I look a little disheveled, but that's only because my mind tends to outrun my comb. Big fan of simplicity, complex theories, and simple joys. What I'm known for. Turning apples, trains, and elevators into other experiments. Asking what if more often than socially recommended. And accidentally rewriting how the cosmos works. Fun facts. I once struggled in school. Don't believe everything you hear. I think imagination is better than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination is infinite. I enjoy long walks, especially if they help me solve something the universe refuses to explain. Looking for someone who enjoys deep conversation, chaotic hair, and the occasional spontaneous equation on a napkin. Can you name this month's Blind Date Through Time dating profile? And thank you for tuning in to What You Didn't Hear on December 17th. I have a special Christmas deep dive episode coming out very soon, so keep an ear out for that. And as always, please leave a review on the podcast and share the show with your history buff friends to help grow the show. Until next time, this is What You Didn't Hear.
Hey, check it out.